I want to welcome everybody to the Daily Cheat Sheet here with Guy Goldstein and Golan Ramraz. The dude will be back on Monday. I'm glad we're joking a little bit before the show. We do like to have a little bit of laughter, but I was taught a lesson a long time ago. Don't write in anger. It's not really the smartest thing in the world. And, that's why I thank God for editors, because they usually don't take angry pieces. But that stopped, sort of went out the fan with social media, because that's all people do is they write in anger. And it's something I try to really not do because, well, pretty angry today, and I know you both know what I'm angered about. I'm looking at this Golan from a really perspective of, obviously, Tucker Carlson has a deep-seated hate for Bibi Netanyahu. Just a deep-seated hate. Jews aside, Jews are second on our DNA testing to the land that he wants us all to do. Guy, do you have your DNA test ready?
You know what? I have my DNA tested. 93% Ashkenazi Jew.
There you
What
are.
does that mean? It means that I belong to a group.
Yeah, there's literally zero way of testing this. That's the funniest thing. But Golan, I
Well,
really think this.
Hitler and Tucker were on the same page. So I don't know, DNA testing, interesting
No,
lineage.
that's not true. Hitler would have considered someone that had half 50% Jewish DNA a Jew.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, good. No,
Tucker has a high.
I just
high
mean the
Afghani.
idea of asking Jews to, what's your lineage and what's your DNA testing? Interesting connective tissue between these people.
One second. So does Hitler have harsher DNA testing, or does Tucker have?
That's a good question. I think Tucker might, but in his defense, Tucker has a lot more money because of his Qatari backers. So,
but it's okay because Qatar has more Christians than Israel.
That's right. They're all slaves, but it's true.
I love that he didn't know the number. You would have thought that we actually knew the number.
That's right.
I mean, because we've discussed it on this show. We've said there are 300,000 that sort of have to practice their religion in hiding. But go on.
But how many Christian Qatari citizens are there? The answer is incredibly easy to know. Zero. Right. The answer is zero, because if you're Qatari and you decide to leave the faith, which is to say that you stop being Muslim, you will be killed, because the Qataris are very tolerant of Christianity.
That's right.
So there you are. That would have been the perfect answer. And I've never seen, I love Mike Huckabee, and I consider him to be a brilliant guy. And when he said, I'm really perplexed by your questions, he really was perplexed by, and I think so is the listener when Tucker is going on. But Golan, I wanted to start by just saying this. I think there's an immense amount of jealousy that somebody like Tucker Carlson has for somebody like Bibi Netanyahu. Mm-hmm. Obviously, he's attacking where Bibi's from, right? Which is like the lowest. It's like schoolyard. Where you from, boy? And I mean, literally like Klansman type mentality. And listen, Bibi went to better schools than you, Tucker. The guy was in one of the toughest units of the Israeli army, Tucker. He could kick your ass at the age of 79 years old. I think that's how old Bibi is. You're intimidated by Bibi Netanyahu, which is one of the through lines of Jew hatred, is pure jealousy. And you are jealous of Bibi Netanyahu, and so is every jackass out there that hates Bibi's policies. You have no idea what Bibi's policies are. He's intimidating, and go on these false lies that he started the Iraq War. You guys take it from there. I've had enough.
Let me address these one at a time. So the first thing is, when you start going after where someone's from, or their accent, or or whatever else, you're not actually trying to critique the person. You're just trying to other the person.
Can I just point out, by the way, Donald Trump's line of argumentation was the exact same thing that the far left, or the Russiagate people, were accusing Donald Trump of not being American enough because his father was an immigrant. There was the whole thing about Obama and Obama being Obama with Kenya, which was rejected because it was a conspiracy. Like, this idea of you're not of the blood has been one of the great stains on radical politics in the last 20 years. And Tucker leaning right into that is on brand for Tucker. I mean, he has embraced every stain in politics that has been possible, usually with the exact methodology of the left, but the language of the right.
Absolutely well put. And Tucker's consistently done this. You know, he's someone
I hope
who
your chat GPT says it was Golan that didn't finish his thought because Guy Goldstein
yes,
interrupted him. Sorry, go
that's
on.
right. No, it's all supplemental material. ChatGPT doesn't know what the hell is going on. All I know is just as a brief aside about ChatGPT, I told Guy this. My wife was watching Lethal Weapon 2 and someone died and she goes, "Oh, was that the friend?" And I go, "Hang on, let me look it up." I know the character's name is Travis. So I looked it up and it gave me this whole long explanation. I'm like, that's not who Travis was. And then I gave it more detail. Remember this guy? I sent him all the screenshots. And then he was like, "No, that's this one and this one." It literally had everything wrong the entire time. If you're listening to ChatGPT, you
It's your
are
friend that relied on the fact that no one had Google at the bar.
exactly. It's the
Or that Cliff
primrose
Clavin
path
wasn't
you're going down.
sitting next to you.
Man, ChatGPT is Cliff Clavin. This is okay.
Yeah.
This is absolutely. But back to Tucker. You know, he had nothing to Guy's point. He's not arguing policy. He's just going racial. I mean, I think that's what you're kind of saying, right? Is when you attack where someone's from, or you know, their background, or where they were born compared to where they live now, or any of this. It's clear you have nothing of substance to your argument. It's the last refuge of the intellectually bankrupt. But of course, it's also, and I know Mend hates this phrase. So I'm sorry, men, when you get here on Monday, you can take me to task for it, but it's also a dog whistle for all the people on your side that are like, we're talking about Jews, Jewish colonizers. You know, you kind of are insinuating all the stuff that you want them to hear without being able to say it. You're just doing that thing. And I hate this phrase, actually, but it's what he was doing. He was othering, othering the Jews. Take a test and prove you deserve this land. All of that, of course, in a way that is impossible to do.
But here's
And
what's really interesting about it.
Can I
yeah,
just say one thing? I love when Guy wants to talk and he's holding it in.
I know. He's like,
His cheeks get bigger.
It's trying to escape. What can I say?
He starts like his cheeks are like I didn't want them to blow up.
But it's also important to note that it's not the standard dog whistle, right? The dog whistle of the right-wing dog whistle, the neo-Nazi dog whistle, is very willing to allow the Jew to define the Jews as Jews. What's fascinating about what Tucker is doing is it's his appeal to primarily Arab talking points, right? He went to Qatar, where he wasn't afraid to leave the airport because there are lots of Christians there. And they gave him a few talking points and a couple of money bags. The money bags we haven't seen, but the talking points now we see. Why? Because this argument about the tribes of Abraham, the tribes of Abraham, or the descendants of Abraham, is a talking point straight out of the playbook of the Muslim Brotherhood's mouthpiece. Right? Why? Because the Israeli response, or the Jewish response, is very simply the descendants of Abraham as a concept is tribal. He says that descendants of Abraham includes Christians. It could include Muslims. It doesn't matter. The covenant is between the people of Israel, the nation of Israel, the Am Israel, if you will, and God. The membership of that nation changes, and it's not necessarily directly connected to the children of the descendants of Abraham, who will be many like the stars. And so the fact that he's coming from the "you're not Beni Israel" argument is straight out of Islamic anti-Semitism.
yeah, it's and anti-Semitism and you know, anti-Israel resentment in general. Anything that basically says Jews didn't submit to us and their non-submission actually is a stain on our history, and therefore we have to continue fighting the good fight until those Jews either submit or are eliminated. This is their
And
whole
those
philosophy.
Well,
those
Guy, I
people
never
aren't
thought
the
I'd have
real
to say
Jews.
this, Guy. Let Golan finish his point.
Oh, it's this is good. I like these. This is a good back and forth because we're on the same page. This ideological laundering that he's doing, it's not skepticism. He's basically it's you know what, Guy, you said it very well. These are Muslim Brotherhood talking points. And all he's doing over and over again is framing these talking points in different ways and making it as clear as day that Israel should be erased as a Jewish state. You know, he keeps saying the caveats that make it sound like I'm not saying XYZ, and yet he's saying XYZ over and over again. He delegitimizes Israel's self-defense. He delegitimizes their claim
But
to the
you know what
land.
he's doing even
Everything
more?
is deliberate distortion.
Can I say what he's doing too? He's delegitimizing America. Okay, he's
For sure.
delegitimizing the presidents of the United States. He's delegitimizing President Trump whenever he can, And Huckabee sort of intimated that during this interview when he said, well, why don't you just go and ask them? I think it was about the Epstein files, right? Why don't you go talk to them?
Yeah.
I mean, that was another lie, right? With the Epstein files was that Chaim Herzog, who none of us are a fan of, the president of Israel, which serves really it's one of those, roles. It's like a homie credit in a movie. When you give the homie producer credit, yeah, sure, that's a good point. And then you let them go. He does a few things, but it was AI imposed by this guy named Chuck Johnson who hates Trump. That's where that Chaim Herzog came from. And the last person that wants to defend Chaim Herzog, I got his first name right? I mean,
It depends. There's a lot of Herzogs, and they
Yeah.
were all very significant in the history of Israel.
what's this one's first name?
I think you're talking about
Isaac.
Isaac Herzog, but his relative was Chaim, right? His father was Chaim Herzog. Okay, so I wasn't like crazy off. Chat GPT is
And
gonna like now.
also was an Israeli president.
Yeah, but saying that Chaim Herzog, that Isaac Herzog visited Pedo Island, and Mike Huckabee is like, what are you talking? I have no idea what you're talking about. Because it's a complete fallacy, which goes to Golan's point. By the fourth lie, we forget about the airplane. We forget about the airport thing already at that point. And that can't be forgotten about. This is one trope after another.
This is really important. What you're talking about is that it's a continuous deluge of lies. And we've talked about it many times on the show, not just in regards to Tucker, but Tucker just happens to be the chief architect of most of this, which is when you are being just vomited on with lies, how can you be like, this particular droplet of vomit is the thing I'm going to focus on? You're covered in vomit. And he's lying flat out about 1,000 things simultaneously. And, it reminds me, many years ago, my father and I went to see Paul Reiser in concert doing stand-up. Okay, I'll never forget this because my dad said something that has stuck with me for 30 years. Not every joke worked, but he just was a nonstop joke machine. By the time one joke didn't land, he was already on to the next punchline. And my dad said, I've never seen a comedian who 30% or 50% of the jokes don't work, but he's got so many coming at you that you don't even realize half of them aren't funny because you're just laughing consistently. That's what Tucker is with lies. But if one lie doesn't land for you, here's truth. Doesn't matter. There's 17 other lies that are already in your face.
And Guy, that's why doing an episode like this is so difficult, is because if you listen to that interview, you can literally make up a list of 50 things and I might be under.
Yeah, definitely
under counting the number of times Tucker lied or distorted the truth or, played loosey-goosey with the facts. I mean, just out of control. And again, he does not like President Trump. Tucker Carlson is not a fan of President Trump. He is not a supporter of President Trump. He makes that crystal clear on a daily basis with his newsletters, with what he says on his podcasts, and who he has on his guests. Okay. And Huckabee called him out on that. He said, you're at the White House. Why don't you talk to them about that? Again, talking about that Israel is holding a sex offender, right? That was one of the things, right? That guy was arrested in Vegas, it was allowed to leave the country, and he was held on bail. Israel has extradited quite a few people into back to America, as you've brought up, Guy, so eloquently. That was the day that Golda Meir, as you've said, about when she extradited Meyer Lansky. It was a terrible day.
And this is something that I used to spend a lot of time debunking because, as you may have noticed, I have a lot of facts and I don't like lies. It takes something like 30 minutes to debunk 1 minute of that particular style of the machine gun lies, because every statement can contain 2 or 3 lies, and someone like Tucker, who speaks almost as quickly as Ben Shapiro, can fit 180 words a minute. That's, and each one of those things requires writing the response, researching the response, providing receipts to the response. An hour-long interview with Tucker Carlson requires a month to debunk, and there's no point because by the time you've debunked it, everyone else has moved on. What I think was really revealing about this interview was Tucker's hypocrisy, because there were so many points where the exact standard that he held other people to say gotcha, he fell for. every time when he says, when they ask him how many, when Governor Huckabee asked him how many Christians are there in Qatar, he says, I don't know. You remember how much of a deal he made when it was Ted Cruz saying, I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe 80 million people in
My
Iran?
favorite thing was when he said, Wikipedia says it. We all know it to be true. You know,
But that standard, he just casually brushed off that he couldn't live up to the standards that he set to other people in order to tell them their own.
but that was all in reference, right? He said, just trust Wikipedia. They say that, you know,
Right.
if you look at Wikipedia, the reason why it's important to bring up, and it's going exactly to your point, is because Wikipedia says there are 300,000 Christians, right? But what it doesn't say is citizens, Guy, to your point.
It's also noteworthy the amount of money that Qatar spend on people that are doctoring Wikipedia and have been for many years, because they understand that Wikipedia has become a tool that we are over-reliant on. And people like the founders of Wikipedia have come out and said that Wikipedia has become absolutely corrupted because of things like that. So relying on a source which the people that founded it know that it's corrupt, there's countless amounts of evidence to show the way in which it's corrupted, and largely it's corrupted by the same people funding Tucker Carlson. It's no surprise that that's his go-to source. To add to that, though, there was one statement he made that I thought was a fascinating statement that nobody's really called him out on because it's such a throwaway line, where he says, I'm comfortable with the idea of a secular democracy, but a nation state based on a religion, I'm not sure I'm comfortable about that. And he said that it was in the context of one of the back and forths with Huckabee. And you can't help but think, like, he wasn't that. Was he uncomfortable about Qatar? Was he uncomfortable in Jordan?
Was he uncomfortable in the United States? Like, this is the hypocrisy of the whole thing. Is for anyone who understands the history of, I mean, frankly, most any modern country, but certainly the ones that he currently has homes in, right, between the United States and Qatar. The United States is a Christian country. It was founded on Judeo-Christian values, deliberately so. These are people that weren't able to practice their religion in the English, under the English king, and so they made a decision to go start a place where they could have those values. It literally is built on a religious ideology. Qatar certainly is. That's why all the people that are held in modern slavery are the non-Muslims, and it's just more jizya, you know, second-class citizen stuff that the Muslim Brotherhood and Islam in general has been practicing for hundreds of years. And so for him to single out, as he usually does, single out Israel as the outlier is just another form of his nonsense. You know, if you think about, just to go back to two things. One, you mentioned how Tucker was lying about getting us into the Iraq war. We've talked about this, so I won't go into a whole rant about it, but I just want to point out that in saying that, you have to ignore, as he does very, very well, facts like.
Well, no, because I just hold on a second, because I just want to retrace where that conversation came from. Was that, you know, Mike Huckabee said, you know, no troops have ever, you know, served, you know, fought in Israel, which is 100% true.
Right.
So Tucker's counter to that was, well, American troops have lost lives for Israel, and Huckabee had no idea what he was talking about. And then he brought up the Iraq War, and that Bibi came here when he was not part of the government.
Right.
He came here as a civilian. He was not part of the Israeli government at that point, and spoke. And so that's when he attributes the Iraq War, that's his like jump to how American troops have fought for Israel, because supposedly American troops were fighting for Israel in the Iraq War.
This is the old dual loyalty puppet master narrative, right? That we're going to ignore American decision making and American analysis, and instead we're just going to outsource the blame. But that's what I was going to say. Is the list of countries that also begged the free world to go against Iraq is endless. It's everyone from Australia and Poland and Spain and the UK, and I mean the list is literally endless. So to say I think Israel is at fault, you have to ignore that Ukraine and Georgia and the Netherlands and Japan and everybody else said the same thing. There was a coalition of countries that said this is probably a good idea, Israel amongst them, and to say, well, Israel's at fault for it is to pretend like they were the only ones coming and shouting about it, which is,
and by the way, there's
verifiably false.
There's actually intelligence, Guy, and you can mistake me if I'm wrong. You could correct me if I'm wrong, not mistake me if I'm wrong, is that Israel encouraged the United States not to go into Iraq.
Oh, exactly right. Israel specifically, the then Prime Minister of Israel specifically said Iraq is not the problem. Iran is the problem, I believe, is what he advised the
That's
Americans.
correct.
He tried to ask them not to go into Iraq. The other thing is, Israel wasn't part of the coalition of the willing because America asked them not to be. So Israel was being bombarded by scuds
Well, that
from
was
that were being
91. That was 91, right?
91. So
But I'm
when
talking
it
about the
when
second time around. We're talking about the second go around.
the second go around, Israel was also asked to sit on the sidelines.
Yeah, yeah.
Israel has only been allowed to take the bombardment from the wars in the Middle East,
Yeah.
right? It hasn't been invited to be part of the coalition. The first time Israel has been part of a coalition in the Middle East is when they were brought into CENTCOM and when they were brought into the Board of Peace now, for whatever that's worth.
Yeah, and this, by the way, and this is important for those of you who don't know, Israel, as was just pointed out, Israel has always been worried about Iran. Okay, this thing today is not new, and they were encouraging the U.S. to confront Iran even then. And then the invasion of Iraq ended up being encouraged because Iran wasn't something that was on the table, and so Iran was the principal long-term concern. It has been from the beginning. That's absolutely right. I want to point out something else though about Tucker, and I'm writing an article about it, so I'm not going to get into the whole thing because you guys can read the article when I'm finished. But I just want to point out how Tucker frames everything, how Tucker lies, because for those of you who are listening and can't place it or can't name it, it's because he's very, very good at it. He's been doing it for a long time. And for many of you who are fans of Tucker or used to be fans of Tucker, again, I used to listen to Tucker's monologues on a regular basis. He's always done this. He just kind of used to do it in a way that we agreed with. And then when he decided to take money from a foreign government and to now become anti-United States, anti-West, anti-ally, he's still doing the same thing. He's just doing it now in a way where he's manipulating the world. So he doesn't ask questions. It seems like he does. You watch the show and you're like, okay, he's clearly asking questions, but he doesn't. He plants conclusions. This is the thing. He doesn't just state a lie. The lie is baked into the premises that he is bringing up. Every answer is trapped because of the way he phrases questions. He does what's called the poison setup. Right. And there's a million of these, but I'll give you just a couple of them. He will give you a false binary. He'll say, choose one of these two. The way he phrases it means you now have to go outside of the question in order to answer it. And he keeps trapping you by interrupting. Right. The insinuation is fact, the emotional priming, the selective follow up. The thing that Tucker does with his face is part of the lie. Right. It's not just omission by speed, by continuing to, as Judah's pointing out, continuing to throw new lie after new lie. Even his facial dishonesty is part of it. The squint, the way the incredulous laugh, the mocking concern nod, all of that stuff. Those are deliberate. Those are nonverbal assertions saying this is ridiculous before you even have a chance to state a fact. And there's 20 of these that I think I listed in my article.
You mean it's not a nervous tick, as he claims?
He claims a lot of stuff.
Which he's actually said that's where that laugh comes from.
Right.
It's a nervous tick. It's the only
Sure.
nerve.
So is his moral inversion. Just a nervous
right.
tick. Yeah.
He's just a tick. And but Golan, you're missing also, just because I know you're writing this, but at the end of the day, what it comes down to is there are people that want to buy what he's selling. And that should scare the living crap out of all of us. Okay, he came out and said 80% of Americans don't go to war with Iran. I don't believe the polls say that at all. I don't believe the polls say that at all. In fact, every time people are polling on X, you have Massey and all these people that are polling. The polling comes back, people actually are in favor of taking out Iran. And he also lied today when he said that he doesn't want, Iran to go nuclear, because he said months ago that he has no problem with Iran having a nuclear weapon. Right. So which one is it, Tucker? But I want to move on though just a little bit, because listen, we're talking about one person with a platform of many, and listen, there are a lot of people with a platform of many, but the issue with Tucker is that he is in such close proximity to the White House. Otherwise, this would not be a conversation that we are having. That's why we don't talk about Megyn Kelly. That's why we don't talk about Nick Fuentes. That's why we don't talk about all these other asshats. If Tucker Carlson, his best friend or one of his best friends, was not JD Vance and he was such close proxy, we would not be talking about this. Tucker Carlson at this point is a national security risk. If you have one of the biggest voices in the
Yes.
world going on camera and questioning the president of the United States' actions. And again, he lied again when he said, "Oh, I only said 20,000 people are going to die." No, you said World War III might happen. Okay, that's exactly what you said. So please don't like give us this crap that Mike Huckabee on the spot can't like go. Did he say World War III happened, or 20,000 American lives would be lost?
Right.
So it's the proximity to the president that poses a clear and present danger. And I'm telling you this right now. JD Vance will not win in 2028 because he's I know the Jewish vote doesn't matter. We're only 15 million, 7 million maybe vote, and 30% of them are only voting Republican in the first place. He's going to have lost the Armenian vote, might lose the Iranian vote, JD Vance, because of his nonchalant not caring when he talks. And this is a real danger to this White House. It's a danger. You cannot trust. Nobody in that orbit could talk around Tucker Carlson. He should not have clearance to go into the White House.
Yeah. There's no question. Guy, I would love to hear your take on that.
No, 100%. And I think the more important thing is JD Vance is going to lose the American vote. He is going to be left with a fringe. He'll have the Appalachian vote because he's an old boy and they know loyalty. I'll give them that. But the American vote will not tolerate this. The American vote will not tolerate the divisiveness. America is based on a concept of unity and belonging. The United States, not the segregated states, right? The way that Tucker is behaving and Vance's failure to distance himself from it will cost him any potential future career he has in politics eventually. Whether it happens before the next elections or when the primaries come around, this is going to be the thing that drags JD Vance underwater. And you know what? It's a shame because I don't think he was always a bad person. I think he just got in with a bad crowd. And I know we don't necessarily agree on that, but I don't think he was always nearly as malicious as he was. I think he was much more ignorant than malicious. And I think I think that this has turned into something which, rather than him being pulled in a better direction by being close to Trump, who actually has a very positive worldview, all things considered, he's been pulled into this grievance identity that is inescapable.
Yeah, we don't totally agree on JD Vance. I, as you know, have been a pretty vocal critic of JD Vance since the beginning. I don't think he's been a misunderstood populist or a late blooming convert. Not that I give two S's about him saying, oh, Trump is our modern day Hitler, and then later being like, I love the guy. Okay, fine. There are people who change their minds. There are people who literally have conversions, but I think he's a shapeshifter. As a screenwriter, one of the things I talk about is the various characters that exist in movies. And, you go through the trickster and the antagonist and the mirror and all this stuff. And then there's the shapeshifter. And the shapeshifter is literally, it's a golem. It's the one where you're like, he's this way. Hey, my precious. And
Now
then
I'm
he's
gonna
like,
have bad
oh,
dreams. I'm gonna have really bad dreams tonight. Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
I
By the
think
way, wait until AI listens to what I just said and then creates JD Vance's face on Gollum saying, my precious. You're going to have some real bad dreams. But I think he always has been this. I don't think ideology is the point with him at all. I think power is. And I think he doesn't believe anything. I think he adapts. He reads the room. And by the way, Men points it out. He's a very smart guy. And whether we agree that he's very smart or isn't, I think that where he is smart is reading the room, sensing the wind, becoming whatever version of himself advances him one rung higher. I just see this over and over and over again. I don't think
no,
he's
I'm
evolved. I
gonna
think he has a
disagree with
series of
you.
masks. I
I'm
know.
gonna
That's fine.
I'm gonna disagree with you because I don't think he's very good at reading the room. I
Well,
think
you're certainly right about that lately.
he's atrocious at reading the room, and I think he's an insecure person. I think this all stems from insecurity. I don't think he's a confident person at all. No offense to people that have weight issues. I think no offense. Listen, I've been a chunky monkey, and I've put on some weight lately due to circumstances. So, Guy, this is not in any way. Yeah,
You
but
call
the
him
young
fat.
a young guy was an Adonis. My God, he showed us pictures the other day. I was like, holy cow.
My goodness,
As we, and for the
the Chris
record, dude,
Hemsworth surfer boy over there.
just for the record, it's weird when you send another dude a picture of yourself and when you're like, we're muscular at 19.
It's weirder when we're like, wow, look at how handsome you are.
25, but it was
Yeah.
Golan asked you maybe do it.
That's right. It
I
makes it
know.
weirder too, but that's all right.
The whole thing was weird. So we're never doing that again. But listen, he's an extremely insecure person who has handlers, who saw this rube and said we could do something with him. No different than Bush. Okay. Let's not forget it was Jeb that was meant to be the president. And there's not a doubt in my mind that George Bush was sitting at a Ranger game and Karl Rove and the others and said, he's our guy. He's our guy. And they're like, Georgie boy, what are you up to? How's life? Well, life's good. I own the Rangers, a little piece of the Rangers. No. He's sober a long time, and I'll knock him a lot, but that I won't knock him on. And and they said, no, you're our guy. And I think guys like Peter Thiel and quite a few others look at JD Vance as their Manchurian candidate. I don't think there's people call me a conspiracy.
I want to add one thing to this too, and it's only because I've received messages, I know we all have, about our, let's say, quote unquote, going after JD Vance on the show. People have written over and over again in my comments, you guys are doing this. He has perceived action and you're attacking him for his perceived access and all of that. We're talking about Tucker to JD. Okay. It's important for you to understand the facts on the ground. We know that Tucker and JD are friends. We know that they share benefactors. We know that Tucker's son works for Vance, quite literally. He has a man inside the White House. We know that Tucker goes to the White House. We know that Tucker's been inside, the very secret areas, very confidential areas of the White House. This is not perceived access. This is actual access. That's what makes him dangerous. If Tucker was just another crank with a microphone, or JD Vance was just another Peter Thiel acolyte that was, getting money for tech stuff, none of this would matter. Because America has an endless supply of both of those things, load of idiots and rich ideologues, no problem. Here, we have two people who have converged and they've been given hallway access. And the minute you have that, with one guy pushing literally Muslim Brotherhood talking points and delegitimizing Israel, trashing U.S. institutions and laundering foreign propaganda and smearing allies, and the other guy inside the building, you have a real problem. This is not perceived anything. This is actual problems.
Listen, I think we've hashed out our opinions on what we think of this. Good for Huckabee for doing an amazing interview. I thought Mike Huckabee. Well, he was Mike Huckabee, and he wasn't going to be rude, and he wasn't going to be us, and he wasn't going to say, "Are you on something? Like what is in those nicotine patches you constantly are handing out to people?" And he wasn't going to do that. He's Mike Huckabee. He's that's why everybody likes Mike. If you don't like Mike Huckabee, you're the one that has issues. I mean, I got to be honest with you. Like if you're sitting across debating or fighting or calling Mike Huckabee essentially a liar or any sort of debate, it's bad form. Like Mike Huckabee is the man to me.
And I really hope that Mike Huckabee releases the Huckabee edit, because my assumption is that they would have recorded this on multiple cameras, and it would be a masterclass in deception to see the Tucker Carlson edit alongside the reality of watching the conversation with both people in camera the whole time.
Well, I'm sure Israel has it somewhere on one of their cameras where they were recording the conversation.
But I think it would be a remarkable thing to release the unedited version, because it would expose the entire mechanism of action of these lies.
Yeah,
not only the selective editing,
be careful,
cutting from face to face.
But be careful, guy. As a filmmaker, I say this: be careful, because you may find that the unedited version and the edited version look remarkably similar. Because Tucker is so good at this, and we can move on from this in a moment, but Tucker's so good at this that it's not about how he deceptively edits something. It's about how he layers 15 to 20 different lies in a question and a response. So when each question contains a false premise, a false implication, a false emotional cue, and then a follow-up has two more lies to it, and the body language is another lie, you don't need deceptive editing. That's why he's so good even live. He can ask that question of Ted Cruz, and who gives a crap about what the exact number of population is? But why did you don't know? How can you want us to go into, like, his vitriolic, crazy response is the lie. He doesn't
But can
need
I?
an edit to
I
screw
just
with
want to ask you
anybody.
guys a serious question. So getting back to it, first of all, the idea that Israel puts like, what did he say? With everybody's phones when they get into the country, they
Oh,
put
for
in
God's sake.
geolocators, or everybody's phone is traceable the second you get into Israel. Like nobody's that important.
Well,
Like
it's also universally true of all phones everywhere. It has been since the cell phone was invented. That's
There's
how
the
the signal
deceptive
finds
lie.
you wherever you are, is because your phone is like uniquely identifiable and universally
That's
traceable.
why in crime movies, they take the thing, they snap it in half, and they throw it in a
Right.
garbage can. Not because of Israel.
I
They
know, and
don't
he was
throw it
he
in the
was he
ocean,
was
by the way.
he was
We've learned from recent history not to throw it in the ocean. iPhones can survive a week out underwater and still have
Wait,
battery.
you have to explain what you're talking about. That's very funny.
There was an incident in the past couple of months where the Judge Advocate General of the Israeli military was accused of doctoring evidence and leaking a video to the media, and so she decided she'd better destroy the evidence because that's what every good. She went for a swim with her phone, and she came back and her phone did it. Except that a week later, someone found it under the sea, and they knew it was her. They were able to know it was her phone because when they touched the screen, she appeared on the screensaver. Because despite having been underwater for a week, it still had half a battery.
That'd be a
And
great
so
commercial for the
Amit
iPhone.
Segal famously said that should be Apple's new commercial.
Yeah, no. You remember, out of curiosity, because David, who's in the ranch right now, brought this up, because I was fascinated. Remember that story with that there was a guy that died in the Dead Sea, and he drowned. I guess he drowned in the Dead Sea, and I still to this day want to know, how do you drown in the Dead Sea? Like, you must have had a heart attack, right? I mean, you can't drown in the Dead Sea because for people that are not aware, you float in the Dead Sea.
It would take a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah, you
It
really
would
have
take
to
a
put.
I do want to bring us to a serious note about why the Tucker thing matters for America right now, though.
Yeah.
Just to sort of wrap up the Tucker line or at least to wrap up my thoughts about Tucker right now, which is one of the things we don't talk about, generally speaking, is demoralization, right? We are in an era of war right now, whether we want to be or not. War is not consensual. This is one of the things that we like to forget.
I
You
like
don't
that
just
line. We're going to steal that for a post.
That's good.
War is not consensual.
you don't get to decide if you're at war. Your enemies decide if you're at war. America has a lot of enemies who are openly hostile and taking a war footing towards her. The American home front has increasingly increasingly lost the will to fight, and that means that more and more of these enemies are thinking that it's possible to beat America. In that context, and particularly around the context of what President Trump is trying to do to change that dynamic and reassert American dominance in the world, particularly against China and Russia, demoralizing the American home front can cost America the entire game. If
You're
America has to go to war and the home front won't support the president and support the nation and support the war, that's how you lose wars
Yeah,
in a
listen,
democracy.
you're 100% correct. It's a brilliant point. You're exactly right, because I mean, when you look at Vietnam, right? Walter Cronkite was doing that on a daily basis. For good or for bad, Walter Cronkite was doing that every single day. And he shaped the narrative. One person shaped the narrative. And Guy, it's really interesting what you're bringing up, is because we were talking before the show about this bot army.
Mhm.
And I know when you look at people who read Laura Loomer and they'd be like, bot army, what's she talking about? She's out of her mind. No, she's not. And what they're referring to is this, there was some dingbat. I think her name is like Michelle Wong. She's not Asian. She's as blonde. She's like as blonde hair, blue eyed as you could imagine. She's like a libertarian from Montana. Something like that is her name. And I was looking at her today. I was looking at her post. I don't know. It came up in my feed where she was getting like 3,200 likes for everything she posted about Tucker. And every other post of hers gets 30 likes. A statistical impossibility. It can't just be, hey, she calls us the kissing the wall people. She doesn't like anybody. She doesn't like wall kissers. That's a new
Jeez,
what do you
that's a
call it?
new Yeah, a new euphemism. Nice.
Yeah, that's a
I
new,
hadn't heard
that's
that one before.
I've never heard that derogatory term. She doesn't like wall kissers. And, she's a libertarian. I think they're all out of their minds. But, Guy, this bot invasion, Elon Musk really has to do something about it. I get it that it could affect the amount of users that you're on your site, but at least you'll know it's real.
So I can tell you from my own experience, I have done a lot. I used to do a lot. I was very active posting on Instagram as my primary platform for a while. It used to be that every time I would collaborate with one specific person, I would get about 5,000 likes more than any other post that I did. Just every time, consistently. And at some point, it became clear that this person had been this person pays for likes, because you can also have non state controlled bots.
No.
The fact is, it costs about $40 to get 5,000 likes. It's not. This is not an out of pocket. This is not an expense that only states can afford. It's not an expense that requires massive amounts of super sophisticated technology. You don't need to have secret teams in AI labs doing this. You can find videos of it online. It's one guy at a desk in China that's connected to 100 different phones, typing in commands, and they go from place to place looking for Tucker Carlson's name and automatically pressing the like button. It's it is so unsophisticated that it's almost sad. But this is how it works. And the fact is, because of the way that the algorithms reward engagement, and because it's one guy with 100 phones and 100 different accounts, and not some sort of easily detectable bot, the algorithms reward this. And so because they have these bot armies, they also encourage the algorithm to raise this content up. So you don't actually need a huge amount of bot content before you drag the humans along with you.
No, but here's
but wait, I just want to point out though that while that is absolutely part of it, the bot armies are out in force, and it's something
Right.
that we can't pretend isn't the case. And we also know, and this is definitive, this is not an opinion, this is not like something that hasn't been proven. We know this, that social media, especially other places as well, but social media specifically, can often identify bots definitively, and they don't kill bot armies. And there's a reason why they don't. And it's not about ideology, it's about money. These aren't a glitch to them. They're useful to them. When platforms can identify bots and choose not to do anything about it, it means detection isn't the problem. Enforcement is. And it's because bots inflate engagement, right? We've talked about this before. Engagement is the core business model of all of these social media apps. If you kill bots, it means you're killing growth, even if it's fake growth, right? Removing those bots forces platforms to basically, admit. Remember what happened when Musk wanted to buy X, and he was like, "Oh my God, the number of bots is like 60% of what's on here, so I'm going to pull out of it," and he couldn't. Well, he said out loud and then they stopped talking about it. He said out loud the thing that nobody talks about, which is that a massive chunk of the users and a massive chunk of the activity on these social media apps is synthetic. It's bad for advertisers, it's bad for investors, it's bad for regulators, but it's bad for the users more than anything else. And they hide behind this warped idea of free speech without truth, when most of the voices on there are not real. And it's what Guy's talking about, where one guy is doing this. But now I had a friend who used to tell me, I used to go on Instagram, and she would go through every post that was about Israel. She's a Jew and she's a proud Zionist, and she would go down every comment and she would like every comment that was pro-Israel, pro-Jewish. And I'm like, the hours you've spent doing that, when a computer or a bot army can do that in seconds. They search for the term Free Palestine, they search for a watermelon emoji, they search for whatever, and they're going to like all of those, except it's like the lie thing we're talking about. In the time that you go down and click all of them, they've done the entire internet. You can't win against that.
Yeah, well said. And Guy, to your point, I agree with you 100%. But remember, we can't blame everything on bots. Tucker has his own sycophant army out there. He does. I mean, that's just the reality, and it's all the grifters. Benny Johnson repeating the lies, another guy that has quasi access. It's Jack Posobiec, another grifter galore that's repeating what he says, that has White House access. It's it's his. I mean, it's his. She wants to call them us wall lickers. It's the Tucker lickers, and that's what all these people are. Their sole business is through Tucker Carlson. It's what keeps them relevant. It's like Imagine if there was no Epstein files or Gaza war. What would these people be talking about?
Jews.
It reminds me of the Joe Rogan kind of universe where you've got all these people who just want to be on Rogan. So they're going to say whatever it takes to stay on Rogan. And it's the same thing with Tucker. But we need to stay in this orbit. This is going to help us. Steve Bannon, there's an article on CNN.com right now, whether you agree with the way they frame it or not, which the headline is Steve Bannon pushed for the Epstein files to be released, and now he's all over them. And it's like, it didn't even matter if you were slitting your own throat. You had to stay in this lane and make sure that you continued to ride the slipstream of Tucker's lies and hatred.
And by the way, David had a great line. He called them Tucker suckers. Because there is a double
Very good.
entendre with that. I
That's
like
very
that a
good.
lot, David. Tucker suckers, because they're the people that believe what he said, and the people that are actually
On their knees.
on their knees sucking on Tucker. And anyway, last thing, I mean, obviously, listen, I wanted to talk about this. I think we all wanted to talk about this because it's to the point where, you know, Tucker kept on bringing up this whole right. Does Israel have a right to Israel? Do the Jews have a right to Israel? And, you know, do we have a right to exist, Tucker? I mean, really, that's my question to you is, do we have a right to exist? Because that's in essence what you're asking. You know, is do we have a right to exist? Do we not have a right to this tiny little place that was partitioned by the United Nations that everybody agreed to? Do we not have a right to exist? And I got to tell you, I'm feeling very uncomfortable. I'm feeling very uncomfortable as a Jew of this world, as a Jew in America right now. I am feeling extremely uncomfortable with where we are heading, with the Islamic invasion and the woke right and the this Christian nationalism, whatever they're calling themselves these days. Just, you know, it's always, you know, they don't change, these people go on. You know, you know, they might change they're no longer wearing hoods, and they're no longer wearing uniforms they're no longer the Bud at Madison Square Garden or holding rallies in New York City at other places. They're all the same. They haven't changed. The uniforms have changed, but the ideologies of these people have changed. And right now, the problem is, from 50 years ago, 60 years ago, the amplification means they have are far larger, and it's far more dangerous. And I worry for both of you who have children. I don't have children, but I have 7 nieces and nephews, 11 great nieces and nephews that are moving targets because of people like Tucker Carlson are making it less safe for Jews in America and Jews around the world. And, you know, in all seriousness, that's a danger. That's more than dangerous. And if you're aligned with this person or you're friends with this person, shame on you for making me uncomfortable in America. I could deal with it. I'm fine. So I won't get a date for the rest of my life. I could deal with that. Okay, I've lived enough.
Or you settle down
okay?
with another nice Jewish Zionist girl, and
and
everything will be fine.
Yeah, because it's so easy to find in the greater Los Angeles area. And, you know, it's like somebody used to say to me, you really got to move to like Gainesville, South Carolina. They'll love you. And I'm like, which part? And
The part that loves you.
the part that, I was like, which part that you know, that Trump likes my stuff? They'll love you for that. But, you know, but this is real dangerous stuff. This isn't like stuff. I mean, all kidding aside, this is like real dangerous stuff.
And just
this goes back to what Guy was saying a moment ago, just to strengthen, you know, to double down on your point, Guy, that war today is primarily informational. It's not kinetic. The bullets and the bombs are downstream, but the real objective is belief. And you don't have to defeat an army. If you can, what did you call it? Demoralize a population, right? If you can do that enough so that they give up before a shot is fired, that is the real danger. Warfare today targets confidence, it targets legitimacy. You could hear these words, these specific words, targets identity. These are the words that Tucker was using. It's not about infrastructure, because a missile can destroy a building, but a lie can rot a society for a generation. There's a joke. I have a son and a daughter, and someone told me at the beginning of when we had a full set of one boy, one girl, they said, be careful, because a boy will break your arm, but a girl will break your soul. And I was like, oh, geez, thanks. All right. And that's how I feel about this, is the bombs will break your arm, but what Tucker is trying to infect the world with right now can break our souls.
I think the most demoralizing part of it, Guy, is we're wrapping up because, well, it's getting late. By you, it's getting early. Well, no, it's getting later. It can never get earlier. Is that Trump has such a good cabinet And he's doing such a good job that even today, as the Supreme Court overturned the tariffs, you had Besant immediately come out and say, and he gave a speech and he said, I didn't change anything in my speech, and they put more tariffs on, and we'll use other laws to do the tariffs. He's got this amazing, and he's got Rubio, he's got these amazing people, and he's got this fly in the ointment that they will not stomp out, that is going to cause, that really will be a cause to lose the midterms.
Mhm.
And people want to blame the SAVE Act on Mitch McConnell. Fine, I agree. Mitch McConnell's a bum that's got to go. But you know what the problem with Republicans are? They're like mole people. They always pop up. These rhinos always pop up. It's something, this is a game where Republicans suck sometimes. I mean, they really, I mean, I don't know a better way of saying it. We suck. We can't pick our judges. We never know which way we're going to go. We have Democrats have like 1,000 batting average with judges. We have like a 300 batting average compared to them. It's a terrible, but Besant, and he's got this great net, but he's got these people in his orbit that literally need to be flown out of this orbit.
Yeah, and look, I think that this is one of the big concerns that we're looking at with all of this, which is the Democratic Party had collapsed into something that was unrecognizable as democratic with a small d, let alone a big D. And it wasn't just that Trump got elected again. Trump got elected again in a way that a Republican hadn't been elected in decades. And we were looking at the potential to start a new era. And instead, what we've done is we've become Democrats. We've embraced all of the same vices that made the Democrats become what they are. And there are two reasons that's terrifying. The first is that it means that this new golden age might not ever happen. And that's awful. Because if there were a Make America Great Again era that could outlast President Trump, there is a distinct possibility that America has another century as the hegemon of the world, and that would be good for everyone. The second thing, which is even scarier, is if the Republican Party continues to embrace the sort of identity-based sectarian grievance politics that the Democrats have embraced, and that becomes the defining politics of America, there is a chance not only that the United States will cease to be hegemon of the hegemonic power, but that the United States will cease to be united in any recognizable way, and that the society will actually come apart. And it wouldn't be the first time a country that was at the top of its game found its way very quickly to the bottom of its game.
All said, and the word of the day is hegemonic. Thank you, Guy
Hegemonic,
Goldstein.
Sonic the Hedgehog's cousin, hegemonic.
Thank you for fitting that in there. And, I don't blame this on President Trump. As everybody knows, I got nothing but love for President Trump. And I do believe, again, he will do the right thing with Iran. I think, as Guy pointed out, the demoralization. I think a lot of what's gone into the delay is that he's had to fight a lot of people from within. And I think he's it's not easy being President Trump right now when you have these nut jobs in your ears. And so my best advice to President Trump is, you have 3, 4, 5 people that you could really trust them, and everybody else, get them the hell out. Just get them the hell out. They're a waste of space. They're a waste of time. They're a waste of energy. They're a waste of energy for all of us. If people are listening to Tucker Carlson or Megyn Kelly's or Benny Johnson's or any of the Jack Posobiec, what a putz. I mean, like, literally, you look in the definition. Look at the definition of putz in the dictionary. Poso will come up. Okay. I mean, he literally is a putz. I wouldn't trust the guy around the blender. Okay. I really want to see his army credentials or whatever he was. He was like probably a freaking cook, and, maybe he served in a special team. I can't see it, but he's the guy. Excuse me. He's the guy that's always walking around bragging about, his service, and everybody that served with him is like, he's like the guy, oh, here's my tattoo, but he's the only person that got the tattoo. Where, everybody's like, hey, who's trying to convince us one night to get tattoos? It's like, just get rid of these people, President Trump. You don't need them. You got the base who loves you. You don't need these people dragging you down.
And also, he's got his instincts. This is something that we've seen over and over again, where he's had 1,000 people in his ear, and ultimately he makes a decision that might go against what all of them are saying. Whether he's right or wrong, the fact that he has the conviction in what he understands the world to be and how he understands people to react to it matters, because he's not a puppet. He's not someone who can just be strung along and pushed into different directions. I really like that about him. Even when I disagree with the decisions that he makes, I always respect the fact that he does it full-throated. And by the way,
did you see this other lie, by the way? Before I forget, the other lie was that Lutnick somehow managed, with the tariffs that his firm or his family's business, made a ton of money off the tariffs, like they had somehow insider trading, the judges were going to go 6-3 and his family made it. It's a lie. There's an absolute lie spread online. People are picking up this story. It's one of those things that it's an impossible.
One lie after another. Just it's not even worth giving it oxygen, even though other people will do so on the other side for bad reasons. There's so many of these things that they just become a useless cacophony of sound and fury, signifying nothing. And I think we have to ignore it as much as we can. But I do want to point out something about I know we're going long here, so I'll make this very short. But we didn't talk about the tariff thing, about the Supreme Court, and I just want to point out again for our listeners, not so we can have an ideological conversation about it, it's important to know what the court said and what they didn't say, and the court did not reject the concept of tariffs in general. When they didn't say tariffs are illegal, they didn't say they're unconstitutional. They said that the specific legal justification that Trump used, which was the IEEPA emergency powers thing, that in and of itself was not a valid basis for imposing. That's what they determined. Whether we agree or disagree, it's important to understand why he was able to turn around and say, all right, fine, now 10% on everybody, is because he said, I've got another clause I can use, another statutory authority that I can use to reimpose them from another side. So that's all he did. And it's important to understand that that's what they came down with. So we don't hear that they simply rejected the entire concept, because these are now legal loopholes. This is now a conversation. This isn't a final decision or a period or an exclamation point at the end of the sentence.
Well said. And I think we're going to close up shop. I will let Guy go back to listening Men at Work and rhyme Hegemite and Vegemite.
Just your most ridiculous line of the day.
Well, I think they rhyme, right?
It's hit the witching hour.
Is it Vegemite? It wasn't a Vegemite.
It is, but it's hegemon.
Hegemon.
Yeah, but I like your Pokemon and hegemon. I think we have some give here.
You think I'm going to remember that word, hegemon? like my brain has only so much room, and hegemon is not going to hegemon, Vegemon, same thing. Have you ever eaten Vegemite?
Me?
Of course, but he's half made of Vegemite. What are you talking about?
That's right. I have Vegemite smuggled in so that I have a forever stock. It's you lose your passport if you don't eat Vegemite regularly.
Well, maybe you should stop eating it then. It wouldn't be such a bad thing to lose your Australian passport. Okay.
Considering that earlier today, a man smashed into a synagogue in Australia with his truck, another one of these happening. Maybe it's time to stop eating Vegemite.
And let me just say, thank God nobody was killed, right? Or hurt. Not a great idea to drive your truck into a cement building. And so I encourage anybody, thank God nobody was hurt. And again, you decide to drive your truck and try to kill a Jew and just land up in the cement. Good
also,
on
trucks have license plates, so they were able to find you pretty quick. Genius.
Yeah. And by the way, good on you, I think, comes from Australia too. So thanks for that. Thanks for that term. For that phrase, good on you. Okay, I want to, it's hard to say, somebody you might know died yesterday that I knew, was always very nice to me, good actor. And, it's 53 years old, and obviously we're all in that range minus you, but you never know when it's your time to treat people with kindness and be the opposite, be everything like these people aren't, because the last thing these people offer the world is empathy, kindness. There is literally zero of it coming from. And then you look at Trump, who oozes kindness and empathy. And you look at Tuckers and the Megyn Kellys and all these people, they have zero humanity, zero empathy. And yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
Can we say some names real quick, just because you mentioned it? You're talking about Eric Dane, who was one of the nicest guys that I ever met personally. You know him from Grey's Anatomy or Euphoria or a number of other things. He was McSteamy on Grey's Anatomy.
No,
Um,
the Last Ship, he was
in the
exceptional in
last
the
ship, he was
last.
incredible, but he's an exceptional actor. He was an exceptionally nice person. I used to hang out sometimes with him and Rebecca, and they just sweet people and a true loss. And I'll throw in the Robert Duvall passed away at 95 years old, and Robert.
Isn't it weird that he didn't get more? Isn't it?
I think he got a lot of look. Robert Duvall is someone that was incredibly not only well respected but well loved. Robert Duvall. Not many people know this, and we don't have to go down the rabbit hole. But Robert was someone who went out of his way to mentor many of the filmmakers and actors that you love today. Billy Bob Thornton wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Robert Duvall. The film Crazy Heart wouldn't exist if it wasn't for Robert Duvall. There's many people who look to him and say, the reason I'm here is because of his mentorship. And he always did it quietly. It's similar to what we talk about with Trump sometimes. He always did it without fanfare. This is a guy who won the Oscar for Tender Mercies, should have won the Oscar for The Apostle, but and just was one of the guys that every time you watched him, you couldn't take your eyes off of him. I was listening to a podcast recently where they listed just the iconic, the Boo Radley and and To Kill a Mockingbird, all the way on down through Godfather and Apocalypse Now and A Civil Action and everything else in between. And he always was the best thing on screen. And this is just kind of a balding guy that could have been nobody, was called I believe by Vincent Canby. The New York Times was called the American Laurence Olivier. This is a man who embodied America. And
Now we trust the New York Times. Okay,
hey,
you've gone on.
I deeply love Robert Duvall and Tom Noonan also. We also lost Tom Noonan this week, another great character actor. Anyway, I figure since you brought it up, we can say their names.
Yeah. On that note, thank you very much for saying their names. I think there should be a Robert Duvall Street. Was my point. He's like one of those people that like is just so iconic. And he was a great conservative. So if you listen to a lot of the conservative like ads and stuff, it was always his voice in the background, which I found extremely cool. Okay, thank you both, Guy Goldstein, Golan Ramraz. Thank you both, David, and the few other people that have been listening into the rants at this late hour or early hour for both of you. And Turbo, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you. Have a great rest of your weekend. You don't have to listen to the Tucker Carlson interview because we did it for you, so you could save yourself 2 hours and 30 minutes. I promise you'll be grateful for us. Sorry?
Your soul will thank you.
Your soul will thank you. There's really no point. You'll just get too angry. Okay. Thank you both. You can find us everywhere at thedailycheatsheet.com. I want to wish everybody a good morning, afternoon, and night world, wherever you are. God bless you all.